I'm live. You're still live. It's good to see you guys here. Hello, Rev Walt. Hello, Fun Monster. Hello, everybody or anybody. I love what you said there, Rev Walt. You notice how ironic you were, or at least I noticed that, and I love that. I just this morning I saw a William H. Autumn quote that poetry might be defined as the clear expression of mixed feelings. Um, that's how I feel about it anyway. Uh, Welcome. Nice to be here. I noticed that every week I have to come up with a title for these live things, and this one is Moralizing Stunts Growth. And that I don't necessarily you're trying. Good, you are. You're a trying being. And yet I don't find you that trying. Uh, uh, Obviously the double entendre, the name of this channel, because I'm dealing both with the origins of life and with beings who we find trying. Beings like Charlie Kirk this week, or like Trump, or like Musk, who said that the Democratic Party is the party of murder. That was his quick conclusion before anybody had found out who it was. So anyway, hello. I realize that since I'm talking about trying beings and trying beings, the two meanings of it, I get really broad in these things. And sometimes I might even drift. It's possible I drift away from whatever was the topic at hand, whatever I chose as the title for the conversation. The title this week was inspired by the conversation last week, the conversation with you all, uh, um, realizing how fundamental it is, this thing about moralizing. I'll be doing a video soon about the varieties of izing that we do, rationalizing, moralizing. I coined a new term this week, dualizing, which is important in the origins of life research we do, because a lot of what goes on for people is that when thinking hurts, as Rev Walt describes, um, if you've got a mystery you can't solve, then you just posit another dimension in which that mystery gets solved. The secondary or dual perspective on the world. And that's been going on not just in theology, but in science for centuries, millennia, I'd say, is if we're comprised of nothing but matter, then where does mattering come from? Well, just posit a different realm. In theology, they call it the God of the gaps, but I think it's more than that. It's the dualism of the gaps, and one of those dualisms is extremely popular right now is just assuming that there's this other dimension called information without explaining it. It's just an unexplained explanation for things. And that's what's going on in consciousness studies. But I'm just illustrating what the problem with these videos. It's my midlife, it's my middle-age spread. I'm all over the map. To me, they're all connected up. So I do want to get to moralizing. I don't know, are they moralizing or just trying to take advantage of the situation? Well, I think that those are the same things. So let's talk about moralizing for a minute. So there's morality, which I would argue is a human thing. The animals are considered moral patients, meaning that we should take care of them, but they're not considered moral actors. They are trying to survive. They have their preferences, like Jeff, he's trying. And so is a dog or a chicken or a tree or a single cell organism. They're trying to stay alive. They're not trying to adapt, I want to say. That trying to adapt comes with learning. But before neuronal sentience, before living beings gained neurology, they're not trying to evolve. Nothing's trying to make things evolve until you get to, you could say, the animals. But anyway, see, that's the problem. That's my middle-age spread. Anyway, hey, Michael, good to see you here. And I'm forgetting who RMSZUCS is, but I sure wish I remembered, because I'm trying to yes, what a week indeed. So let me get back to moralizing and Fun Monsters comment here. Uh, Moralizing, Rob. Thank you, Rob, from Cleveland. That's a city. I've been there. Um, okay, so uh, to moralize is to pretend that the universe is on your side, which is taking advantage of the situation. One of the things you've probably seen in some of the tributes to the paeans to Charlie Kirk, or even the somewhat mealy-mouthed, ambiguous, ambivalent feelings we have about him, like uh, um, all murder is death, and at the same time, he was a or he was a bad person, but at least he wanted free speech. That whole thing. No, he did not want free speech. He was what they call in rhetoric a gladiatorial fighter. He didn't actually care about content, is my impression of him. And he sure didn't care about open debate. Um, he used every rhetorical trick, content free, consistency free, to pretend he'd solved reality, and that anybody who disagreed with him was stupid, evil, and weak, which is exactly what would be that movement's thing. So no, he wasn't a great debater. He was, as South Park describes him, the master debater. It is a form of masturbation, and I'll remind you that my watchword is don't debate them. They're just masturbating to you taking the bait. Call them on that instead. Um, and and the debates against him didn't do that especially. They didn't say, "Oh, I see what you're doing. There he goes again. You've got this formula." Most tried to debate him on content, which I think is a dangerous move. There's some brilliant people at it. There's a young guy, I forget his name, who's doing a brilliant job of doing the debating on content, and to some extent getting into the character question. You know, but still, the focus on content, that's not where they are. They're actually not paying attention to content. To pay attention to content would be constraining. And once again, this relates to the idea of moralizing. How do you moralize? You moralize with loaded, load-bearing, loosely defined last words. And the way I'm thinking about it this week, a video made. I used to think, well, a loaded. Some of those words will drop down, and people will do a game of tuck and duck. They will tuck themselves under any positively loaded words and duck any negative words. So I'm a patriot, you're a traitor, that kind of thing. But actually, now I'm thinking about it as these words float up like pillars, like pedestals. And if it's positive, you put yourself on top of it. The word becomes load bearing because you're sitting on top of it. You identify as heroic, let's say, or virtue. You know, it's basically virtue signaling or grandstanding is what it is. And then if there's a negative word, you put someone else, you put your rivals on that. That's all Kirk was doing. Um, Loosely defined is crucial to it, and what it means for me is if I have rested myself upon a pedestal, if I've said I'm a patriot, the last thing I'd want to do is actually define patriot specifically, because if I did that, I might find out I'm not one. Um, all patriot means is hella good. That's all it means to a Trumpist. It's got no other reference. It's the reference is me and my kind. And Kirk was doing that straight through. I will note, remember the Epstein files. Trump has been straining to change the subject for a long time, and Kirk did a wonderful job of that for him. And I don't want to forget, but this is one of the things we're also up against, and why debate is a problem. Because if you're going to debate them and they just keep on tossing crap at you, then it's hard to know where to focus. And that's another reason why I think don't debate them. They're just masturbating to you taking the bait, is where to focus. Focus on the general formula, the herobotic formula. Don't don't focus on the details, because they're just, from my perspective, the game these guys are playing, and they play it for any cause. It doesn't matter that it's the right wing lifestyle brand, but that's an easy one to do it with, theology, right winging. But it um, They're j they're simply playing that tuck and duck game, with the loaded, load-bearing, loosely defined last words, and they're doing it for kicks. They're doing it for kicks, which includes, financial remuneration, but they have no problem, uh, tearing down society, uh it's a small price to pay, that they don't actually care about. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We have freedom of speech, but speech has consequences. Yeah, and we have also freedom of not listening. Um, uh, so uh, I call it freedom of what do I call it? Freedom of dissociation. I don't have to listen to you, and deciding when to listen and how much to listen is a really interesting question to me. Too, it's also related to what not just me but others call attentionomics. So attentionomics, I have limited attention in a world of infinite things I could pay attention to, and so I have to decide what to pay attention to, what to ignore, and what to fight, and what to go to war with. All of so there's what I attend to because it's useful, there's what I attend to because it's a threat. Um, that's actually my definition of reality. We'll debate reality, know what reality contains, but I don't think we debate much what the container is. The container is reality is the set of all the of ever-changing threats and missed opportunities. Threats and opportunities. That's what I think reality is. So even if someone says that we have to pay attention to what Zeus demands of us, they're saying that Zeus is part of reality that we have to pay attention to because there's an opportunity or threat there. I don't think we debate that much. Um, we debate what is real, but not what the container reality is or the set reality is. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, and speech does have consequences, and freedom of speech is not absolute. I don't think. And once again, I'm interested in the ambivalences. These are the things that hurt heads, as Rev Walt said. Uh, uh, so uh, to own your ambivalences is certainly not something that Kirk did. Um, he was completely devoid of curiosity, introspection, any of that stuff. That's the joy of it. Freedom from thinking is, you could say, maybe the biggest problem we face. So I'm deeply ambivalent about freedom of speech. There's at the one extreme would be totalitarianism, where it's not even just the original meaning of it, from what I understand. I've heard a little debate about this. Is that we're not just controlling your behavior, we're controlling what you can think. Memicide, the killing of memes, killing of ideas. Okay. Why has society as a whole failed to focus on mental health unless mental health issues play to an advantage? How do we focus on mental health? Well, one way we do it is through social norms. That's probably the main way we do it. So I don't know if we failed to focus on it. I'd say the elephant is the room. That is, the social norms are how we constrain the mental health. I remember, I might have mentioned I have a my firstborn son is different, and in ways that have been counterproductive for him. Um, uh, when I was in Indonesia, I asked Indonesians whether they had people like that, because the society was fascinating society, very religious. I didn't meet a single atheist. I didn't even meet a single person who knew an atheist in Indonesia. But their social norms are extreme. One of the things that's fascinating about them is that they have 5 solid block religions. and they even put it on your driver's license. You have one or another. I lucked into the right question to ask in Indonesia. I asked about 30 people who made religion, God or man, and everybody answered the same, which was man makes religion. There's only one God, and men and people, humans, come up with different ways to pray to him or to show their devotion to him. And only after I was there for 3 weeks did I discover that that's in their constitution. It's 17,000. I think it's 17,000 islands, separate islands that were only turned into a country a while ago. And the first principle of their, you could say, the declaration of the republic was that there's only one God, and people come up with different ways to pray to him. But social norms are one way we handle it, and the freedom we've gained here by not being a totalitarian theocracy yet um, has been the freedom to think all sorts of things. And then on top of that, you have a bunch of movements. I was part of one of them that celebrated our freedom as if freedom was always a good thing. Our freedom of speech, freedom of thought, the heroism of disruptiveness, punk, all of that. And the way I look at my contribution to that is that they contributed to the production of the Sid Vicious on the right. The Sid Vicious is on the right. So that's a challenge. So yeah, I don't want to be neither totalitarian nor anything goes, is one of the things. Now, mental health issues. Um, I'll say one more thing about that, which is that these are early days in psychology. As an empirical research topic, and one of the challenges we face in research topics across the board is this tendency to turn it into a taxonomy. So while I have respect for psychologists and clinical diagnosis, I don't have absolute respect for it because I think it's more complicated than that. As I told a friend of mine who's a fluid dynamics rocket scientist, psychology is not rocket science. It's way harder. Um, so anyway, let's see what we got. Uh, sorry, I'll say one more thing to Rob about that, which is that I think we took mental health mostly for granted, and understandably so, because in a rising civilization, during our boom years, there was less of it. And now we're stuck in the touchy 2020s. And as a result, we're dealing with a whole lot more of it. And we're going to be dealing with a lot more of it. So let's get back to the thing. My best guess at the prognosis for civilization is it will fall down a dumbass death spiral. We will, and not just us, but any intelligent life form anywhere in the universe would fall down one because of the way language frees us. Is that we dissociate, a mental health problem, as we check out from reality because we live in two worlds: the world of the physical world, like all animals deal with, but also the world of our imaginations. And so we end up dissociating from reality, just checking out, becoming legends in our own mind, the way Charlie Kirk did, and thereby neglecting and disrupting reality, which motivates us to check out that much more. Yeah, so that's a challenge. Um, uh, okay, when Charlie Kirk says it's worth it to have, that quote, I don't think he ever thought he'd be part of the same. Yeah, no, I cause a little controversy among my friends on Facebook, and I would say that this week I noticed that I'm a bit like a fallen Catholic who lives in Catholic society, but in my case, it's kind of the New Age spiritual Buddhist society, because a lot of my friends are New Age Buddhists still. They have the residues of that. But uh, yeah, so um, I said, I think it's fair to say that Charlie Kirk was a loser. And And a lot of people agreed with me, and a lot of people said, "Back off, Jeremy. Shame on you for doing that about someone who had just died." And I said, "I never think in terms of winners and losers." Back in 2005, I think, I wrote an article about Trump and what I call nounism, which is this taxonomy thing that people do. It's that's related to the mental health issue. You know, we call anybody who we don't like a narcissist, and it feels more credible than calling them an asshole because it sounds all clinical. But actually, it basically means that. Um, and winner and loser is also a taxonomical move that one makes from on high, atop a high horse. It's a moralizing move. Um, this person is defective, Trump derangement syndrome, that sort of thing. So, but I was happy to use it because, as I've said before, I don't believe the golden rule is a rule. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't say who should decide what. And back to dirony, I mean, who should accommodate whom? I didn't get enough sleep last night. I was too busy thinking. Um, uh, so the golden rule doesn't decide who should accommodate whom. It's a paradox at most, and paradoxes mean that we're dealing with a tough judgment call about, for example, whom to accommodate. Um, so the golden rule is a paradox that says if everybody accommodated everybody, no one would need to accommodate anybody. Um, but I do believe in a variation on it, which is whatever you do unto others is fair game for them to do unto you. So I was happy to use the word loser. Why? Because Charlie Kirk uses it all the time. Everybody's a loser who disagrees with him. And yeah, so I was dealing with that issue this week. And it is very much the high horse thing. The high horse advantage of moralizing is that you feel immune. You feel like you have found a uh, an island, a plateau above the dironic situation of life, the choppy seas of life, where you are permanently safe and free and can talk down at everybody else. So that's what a high horse is about, and that's what moralizing gets you, and that's why it's taking advantage of the situation, as Fun Monster said. Um, so anyway, yes, that's why he's a loser, because he played this game of winner and loser, and he lost at it. Um, and I don't mind saying it. And one of the things I had to say to people who were shaming me for it is, if you're going to shame me, remember, I think it's fair to say. So if you want to counter me, tell me why it's unfair to say it. That's what I'm trying to understand. Okay, Tilly Middlehurst had recently debated, probably in the past couple of months, and I thought she debated him very well. I should look that one up. I'm yeah, obviously, one of the things I'm really grateful for this era in one respect. Um, Around 2005, I was thinking what we really need is a large print, obvious asshole. Um, because I was noticing that we would focus on one asshole or another asshole, but we wouldn't get around to trying to understand um, what what is the asshole or absolutist lifestyle. What is that habit? So, you know, I noticed this after George Bush. There was a kind of like a good riddance and now we'll be decent again sort of thing. And I was thinking, no, we need a generic quintessential asshole. And we've got that in Trump. So if he doesn't kill us, um, it could save us. I don't put much hope on that. I had that out with my one of my liberal friends this last week. She was saying, well, maybe this will, actually, two of them. They said, maybe this will wake us up. That's not my prognosis. I don't think that's what generally happens. I even asked, um, can you name a time in the past when the going got rough and people sobered up as compared to dualizing and moralizing? Um, I can't think of one. I can't think of an example of that, which is related also to this idea that people might give up a dogma, but they're very loath to give up the dogmatism. dogmatism, moralizing, dualizing. Um, those are advantages. You wouldn't want to give those up if you could help it. But this is also these are the kinds of friends who say we could just choose to be moral without recognizing that morality is incredibly expensive. Being moral as compared to moralizing. Being moral means dealing with these dilemmas, these ambiguities, living on the choppy seas of life, experiencing the irony. And if you have found a way to be addicted to that, you wouldn't want to give it up. It's heroin. It's the it's a drug that makes you feel like an eternal hero. Who would want to give that up? It's really hard to get people to move off of it. I do know a few. One of them is present here who gave it up, and I'm so fucking impressed by Fun Monster for doing so. That's really hard to do. Um, uh, and yeah, so anyway, let's see. And I did it too in a way. Opposite side. I wasn't a right winger. I was a liberal pacifist, a spiritual guy, and then realized that it wasn't a life size um, attitude or belief system. That it wasn't going to get me through life. And I remember, I probably mentioned this before. I remember the moment when I said, well, I could pick another dogma. And then I said, wait a second, I'm going to study instead how we shop among interpretations, how we end up buying habits that become dogmas for thinking. And that's when I got into what at the time I called ambigamy, deeply romantic, deeply cynical. Um, uh, it, Ambigamy sounds like it's about romance, and it can be. It's one of the places where I first noticed it. One of my girlfriends said to me, "This is the problem with you. You give some, but not all. You'll take some, but not all." And I realized, oh yeah, no, that's me. Of course it is. Selective interaction. Back to attentionomics. That is, what are you going to pay attention to? What are you going to ignore? What are you going to block? What are you, and that ended up going down all the way to the origins of life, where selective interaction is what you need first. You need to be able to take in energy that you can use to regenerate yourself, but not the energy that will degenerate yourself. Eat food, not poison, and then you apply that at the level of emotions and language, and you get confirmation bias. So anyway, let's see where we go here. Um, uh, let's see. The Galvin family has, I don't know the Galvin's family, so maybe say a little bit more about that. I'm not sure who that is. Let's see. Mental illness is too often seen as mental weakness. There is also an undercurrent of selfishness. Well, okay, so that's interesting, Rev Walt. Uh, in a way, we are talking about selfishness and weakness as a pairing. When I say we, I should say me. I don't know, but at least that's the topic, is what I'm saying. Is that if you get into heroin or herobotics, then you don't have to do for yourself uh, the hard work. So it is a kind of weakness, and there's also an undercurrent of selfishness in it. There's an advantage to you. And what I have to keep in mind is that we all take advantage. You can count on humans to take advantage where there is some. We are corner cutting, as are all organisms. So in physics, one of the most fundamental things I'm dealing with is what's called the law of least action. And then when you get into life, it's the law of least effort. Um, because that's what we would do. So now you say a illness is too often seen as mental weakness. Okay, this is a big Robert Sapolsky point. He wants to say we're determined, and you shouldn't blame people who have. You shouldn't get into the old kind of moralizing that was done around mental illness, that it meant that the devil had entered you or whatever. And he goes all the way to the other extreme. Um, and doesn't notice the paradox of doing so, because he says we shouldn't blame the mentally ill, um, because it's determined. Well, just add to just a lot of what I do is just go meta, which is you take the answer and you go up a level. You go meta means you think about it from above. You go up out of your conclusion to the next question, and the next question is, what are you doing telling me not to blame them if you say that they can't help it? I can't help but blame them. So he doesn't quite notice that. So these are people who are drawn to conclusions on one side or the other. Um, I I think there's the neurodiversity argument. There's the neural tribe kind of argument, um, and an advocacy for a certain kind of tolerance of mental illness. Uh, and yeah, I don't go quite that far. I think there really is mental illness. I think there is evil in this world. It can be very innocent evil. I think this is one of the problems we are dealing with the mind-body question, the free will determinism question is, it was one of the first things I ever coined was Darwinian exculpation. Darwinian was a cross between Dow and Darwin, and exculpation means, um, you're not at fault for who you are, but still, you will pay the price for who you are if you're bad. That's kind of a paradox. So it's innocent evil, sympathy for the devil. That conundrum is a major driver in my work, all the way out to my profound respect for religion and my profound loathing for religion. Um, if I were them, I'd be doing exactly what they're doing. There's no reason why I think that I would be an exception to the draw of religious or spiritual herobotics if I was under different circumstances. Um, and I do see the ways in which it maintains social norms. Indonesia was a beautiful country, um, a beautiful civilization at the time I visited. It's gotten harder over there, as they'll tend to be, as they'll tend to do. Um, I do have friends who need it, and cannot begrudge them it. Um, and at the same time, I think it's going to kill us. That whole approach, that whole solved reality, I'm the authority on reality kind of thing. Humbling yourself before the Lord so you can lord it over other people. So, okay. Let me see. 20 years from now, we'll have completely new mental health paradigms. Yeah. I want to mention something related to that. We think that the scientific revolution was the combination of formalism or consistency, math, logic, plus empiricism, which means testing things in the world, which is correspondence. So, formalism is coherence, making sure your ideas are consistent. That's what logic and math are about. Um, Empiricism is correspondence to the real world. I think we're missing the third scientific revolution, and it's what I work on, which is categorization. And it's called abduction in logic. How do you decide what's a what? How do you cut the universe at the joints? Um, it's the hardest to get right, but it's especially hard, or you could say easy, if you don't pay attention to it. If you just work from your intuitions and say, well, that's a narcissist or that's a psychopath. So those are interesting challenges. And I think if we come up with completely new health paradigms that are not just reshuffling of the categories, we'll do it my way, which is, I just came back from a walk with Terry. And we're talking about how do you impose rigor on abduction. And our approach is, you can identify your intuitive categories, for example, trying. I assume there's something called trying that's different from not trying. But I don't get to claim that category until I've explained how it emerges from what precedes it. So, not because it's mine. I just think that's how you would have to, how you'd how you'd have to get more rigorous about it, because otherwise you get one guy's impression of the categories versus another one's, and you have no standard by which to decide which one is more real. Well, and empiricism doesn't solve it. Experiments will not tell you which categories are right. I know this because I follow all the different theories, and people are having fun having these different theories because they're not testable. There's no way of knowing which theory is better. They all kind of, you could explain things lots of different ways. It's what they call sometimes overdetermined or underdetermined. Anyway, let's see. Um, let's see. Excellent. They hate the R word at a family gathering. They're all red hats. It didn't go well. Um, the R word meaning, I'm guessing, Republican? Is that what you're talking about? Um, I wish I could take it back because I feel like I'm the a-hole on that one. This came up this week, my friend. Let's see. Yeah, I want to know which R word you're talking about, but it doesn't matter to what I'm going to say. This relates to the very first comment here from Rev Walt, which is that thinking hurts our heads. Um, uh, uh, you, my brother was asking me yesterday questions about this work I do and whether it's fun. Um, it is somewhat. It wasn't at first. When I first started into this effort to become less bad at fighting, at saying the things I said to people that got the kind of pushback I got for saying that Kirk, it was fair to say he was a loser. Um, I'd, I'd, I'd be filled with anxiety about whether I was too far out on a limb, and now less so. And though I do enjoy debate, um, I wouldn't want to. I'm pleased to see I don't enjoy it that much because I want my feelings out of it. I want to be as strategic as possible. And the more I'm getting my rocks off on fighting people, the more I'm like Charlie Kirk. So I don't want to feel too grubby or too exalted in the process. My watchwords for the longest time have been, if you don't want to be an asshole, expect some anxiety. Well, I get some anxiety about fighting. This is one of the things that keeps me up at night, is revisiting arguments of the past day. Yesterday was an interesting case because of a Trumpist I was dealing with, a good friend who's also a Trumpist, who sent me a quote and didn't say it was a quote, but it was one of these vile things about it. Yeah, we found out as a liberal we're going to have a fight. And he didn't say that. And we were off to the races. And then I realized, wait a second, that wasn't necessarily what he meant. He was quoting me something, and he gave me the line, well, I was just trying to be helpful. Yeah, but I feel perfectly entitled to not trust his self-reported self-flattery there. But anyway, uh, uh, I must say something in response to Rev Walt here. It's funny, a few years ago, I wrote an article for Psychology Today titled "There's Room for Racism in America." And it was interesting because the next day I played in the warm-up band for Fela Kuti's son. So this was a Nigerian funk band, and the club we played it at was just everybody was black, and I was thinking, wow, what a juxtaposition, Jeremy. There's room for racism in America. Um, uh, and then the next day I was it was probably the biggest footprint I ever made. It was a little footprint, but in the world of the right wingers, is that I got invited to be interviewed by Hugh Hewitt, who is a Trump supporter. With a national big deal radio show, because he found that article was interesting. Well, what I meant by it is, we're fucking family. we're stuck with each other here in America, and there is racism, and we have to kind of face that, um, and not just pretend that racism is that this isn't us. Is kind of what I meant by that article. Um, uh, the interview went fine, but not great. I wish I had been a bit more thuggish. I had read that the guy was a kind of a he was ambivalent about Trump, and I said so in the interview, and no, he wasn't at all. He shamed us for he shamed me. He shamed the liberals for assuming that a president is racist. Anyway, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, like how could that be? That's using the bully pulpit, but to say if you made it this high to be president, you couldn't possibly be racist. Horseshit. Um, okay, so sounds like you need to find a better family. Yes, but at the same time, um, I'm stuck with the family I'm stuck with it, and unfortunately, it's populated by human beings. Um, Sometimes I get lonely, but then I remember that people are the worst. Uh, so, and present company accepted. I'm just talking percentages, but and also when I say people are the worst, I have to include me. That's kind of the ironic position on all of this. I'm human. Nothing human is foreign to me. I think that came up this week. I'm sorry, I'm probably off on tangents. We talk about active listening, but I realize that MAGA Mike is actually active acting. That's me putting myself in their shoes, and for me to do it well. And I think I'm impressed with how well I play a Trumpist and how well I confuse people about whether I am. Um, I have to be able to put myself in their shoes and remember when they were mine. That's what method acting would be about. And I think it is the right ironic position. I have friends who tell me, I worry for you, Jeremy. The way you talk about that stuff, it sounds like you might be beginning to convince yourself. It's a fat fucking chance. I have friends who think that if you put on a red hat or wear a MAGA shirt, it's going to kind of burn your skin. And no, I don't think so. I can visit anybody's position and not necessarily and not be convinced by it. It's like trying on a pair of pants and at a store and not assuming that you own them because you've tried them on. I think that's a good place to be about this stuff. So yes, anyway, so I'm stuck in America. I'm stuck in the human race. I'm stuck dealing with all this sort of stuff. So finding a better family is one of the three strategies. Carrot, sticks, and leaving are the strategies. Variations on them, but those are the ones we've got to work with, and I'm okay working with them. And leaving is one possibility. The one that interests me more is good Lord, sorry, just a second. I'm just trying to change the color a little bit here. Um, uh, oh, I spent some time this week on my production values and didn't make much progress. The camera, shit. Um, uh, Yeah, so leaving is one of the options, but it's not the only option, and I don't believe it's the best option these days. I am hats off to you, Rob, um, for having ventured into the practice of saying you hate the R word because we need practice. That's the only way you're going to stop feeling overwhelmingly grubby after you fight. It's the only way you'll ever cultivate what I call repercussioning, which is the ability to withstand the repercussions. So when I talk about I don't want to get the joy out of it and I don't want to be terrified by it, and at the same time, if I don't want to be an asshole, I have to expect some anxiety. I don't want to be overwhelmed by it. A lot of that is coming down, is really exercising your core. What are you actually advocating here? So I don't know if I would have chosen, and it's practice. It's what this whole new series I'm going to start once I get my camera stuff figured out, which is how to not suck at fighting. You need the practice, like I've said a few times this week, maybe last Saturday as well. Um, uh, When I go see my grandkids, I ask them if they're getting better at fighting because they suck at it. And that's why they're practicing. They're practicing so they can figure out what works and what doesn't. So, would I say I hate the R word? If you mean Republican, that's a lifestyle brand. And my point is different from that. Um, I'm really finding myself lifestyle brand indifferent. I really find I'm doing as much battle with leftists as and rightists because I'm not battling over I'm not it's not about what jersey I'm wearing. I'm a liberal conservative. I'm a libertarian socialist. I think we all are. We're all trying to figure out what to change, what to keep the same, what to loosen, what to tighten. Those are the ambivalences. Those are the dironic ambivalences we're all dealing with. And the rest is just jersey wearing and grandstanding. But I could say I hate herobotics or I hate people who pretend that they've solved reality and then anybody who disagrees with them is a douchebag. Um, yeah, that I'd go that far. I would say that. So I really got to be careful about the words. And the way you get better at figuring out what words to say is to really build your core strength. What is your core from which you are arguing? And for me, it really does come down to self-love is important, but get a room, don't let it go to your head, and zip up after, and don't turn basic infrastructure into your circle jerk vanity project. How you'd get that across to a crowd, so I hate moralizing would be another way to talk about it. I hate moralizing because it's pretending the universe is on your side or something higher than the universe, like God, or something separate, the dualist, the spirit means I'm good. Spirit being this secondary realm away from the physical. Okay, let's see, where are we? Good point, MZ, says Liminal, and I agree. I'm not sure, which one is it? Which point is he saying? Oh, we are all learning that lesson too. I wish. Yeah, okay, so yes, good point, MZ, and that's the practice I'm talking about. Learning that lesson too. Okay, what I want to say is the lesson isn't to not fight with them, it's how to fight better. Um, I just think we suck at fighting. And I also think that's the reason why Trumpists who are terrible at fighting, um, you know, one guy called me a Nazi this week. A liberal called me a Nazi this week because, well, he's kind of on the fence. He's a softie. He's what I call a Nazi empathizer. He's like, be nice. If we all were just nice on the count of three, everything will work out. Um, uh, I'm I'm saying we need to practice to fight better because these guys make us look like chumps when they're chumps. We have to surpass them in our capacity to fight. And for that, you need a laser like focus, or else they'll just jerk you around, lead you around by the nose into whatever they want to talk about, which was very much a Kirk strategy. Um, because that counts as winning. As long as you are leading the conversation, as long as you have what we call frame dominance, where you get to frame the debate and shift it around wherever you want, we lose by their standards. And so that's another reason why the practice, learning that lesson, but by that lesson, I mean repertoire, not recipe. I mean, you've got to figure out what mix of assertion, accommodation, and leaving to use. I think of it like fishing or like magnets. I'll describe both of them. Um, I have my Trumpy friends. Um, I use a combination of carrots and sticks, and to some limited extent, leaving. But I'm fishing, and the I'm fishing with low test. What do they call low test fishing line? That is, that line will break. There have been plenty of times when I thought, okay, this thing I'm saying is on the edge. He might leave and declare victory if I leave. Um, I mean, if I say this thing, and at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. I'm trying to maximize. I'm trying to maximize honesty with with respect to kindness. So it's what I call carrot sticking. Um, and I do it extremely with him. I am vicious in my attacks on his rationalizing and moralizing. And at the same time, I tell him I love you to bits. And I thank him for the things he does. For example, this guy's helping me out with my camera setup. Even though he's a Trumpist, he said to me, "I'm going to want a credit on your videos that a Trumpist has helped you get your video act together." He's a guy who knows a lot about video and lots of things. He's a great engineer, successful entrepreneur, and all of that. But we have a combination of tender and tough, and it is the mixture. It's the tough love ambivalence. It's not like there's some center point or that toughness and loving can be done simultaneously. They're opposites. But how to contort them just right so you can make that connection, keep the connection. That's the lesson I'm trying to learn. You might have a different lesson in mind, but that's the one for me. I'm trying to figure out how to get that mix right. That's why it's repertoire, not recipe. There, my lighting's a little better that way. Okay. Yeah, it's also like magnets in this respect. It's a somewhat better metaphor, is that I'm trying to persuade someone. I'm trying to influence them, which means I'm trying to be a magnet that where I get more uh, clear, strong, punchy, assertive, I'll pull him to me. But if I am too assertive, it reverses. And the more I pull, the more he pushes away. It's a little bit better metaphor than fishing line because it includes this thing about how some people, the more assertive they get, the more you distrust them. And we had that out this morning. He said I was only trying to help, and I had to say to him, that's no doubt reassuring to you. It's a major red flag to me. Um, any of that self-reported self-flattery, major red flag for me. And I said to him, and hold me to the same standard. If you hear me engaged in self-reported self-flattery, you should trust me less. Don't trust me more if I say, no, I'm a decent guy, or I'm a rational guy, or I'm a critical thinker. Fuck off. It's like saying, don't trust your intuition, trust mine. I'll tell you, it's basically commandeering someone's intuition. No, believe me. I know you don't believe me, but believe me, you should believe me, is basically what it's saying. And I have an ironic response to that, like consolidating it that way. That's what we mean when we say no, really. We say, I know you don't believe me, but believe me, you should believe me. Okay. Um, let's see. Only if we can count on the pundit to be somewhat rational about it. Good. Okay. So I'm not sure what that's let's see. That's probably a response of mental health. Okay. Um, good. So let me use that as a springboard to talk about the difference that Ising makes. There's rational and rationalizing. There's moral and moralizing. What is the difference? Well, it basically comes down to what Fun Monster was saying before. It's about using um, it's turning morality into an instrument for um, personal advantage, as Fun Monster said. Um, and there will be that tendency in all of us. It's like the universe is on my side. That's what moralizing, that's what rationally means. Now, I have it out with this camera assisting Trumpy friend about rationalizing versus rational. Um, I'm pretty sure, though he would deny it with some self-reporting flattery, that his version of being rational is being able to make a coherent case for what he believes. Maybe coherent and correspondent, meaning it's scientific, but but to me, any dipshit can do that, to make a case for what you believe, and this is where the active acting comes in. Question is, can you do that for someone's counter argument? Because that shows that you're actually weighing the pros and cons. Um, that's closer to rational. Rationality, I see, this is the thing. I want to unpack these words. What do we know about rational or critical thinking? That they're hella good. What do they mean? It's like common sense. It sounds hella good. What does it actually mean? How would you actually get specific or operational? How do you concretize what that actually refers to so it doesn't just mean hella good? Well, there's different ways of going at that. One of the last conversations I had with Dan Ellsberg before he died, he's the guy who founded the field of behavioral economics and then did the Pentagon Papers, was about what rational meant. And and I have philosophy friends who say, well, it's something that humans can do with language. Philosophy professor friend of mine says that. I don't think so. I think that rationality is grounded in ratio. This versus that, a ratio. Um, I don't think there's such thing in living beings as irrational, meaning that you're not weighing, you're not comparing things. Um, uh, I think it's misdenominational. That you're comparing the wrong things, apples and oranges and that sort of thing. And and so this is a new thought, um, that that to rationalize is to deliberately or willfully compare the wrong things, um, for personal advantage. Back to Fun Monster's comment. Um, let's see, agree. Let's look. Liminal. My fam said it's okay to say, I. Oh, the R word retard. Retard. So, yeah, Louis C.K. is interesting on the topic. I'm very impressed by how much the counterculture or civil rights has changed language. And I'm very unimpressed by the accusation that all of that is woke and therefore distracting. It's worth noting that Hitler, Stalin, and Pol Pot were all avidly opposed to woke, um, to liberal, to that version of it. Um, at the same time, I want to unpack these words and actually figure out what they mean. And I also know that there are excesses. There are limitations to how far we should go in imposing our standards on each other. And retard is an interesting word this way. So is cunt and pussy. Um, so is tar baby. These are really useful words. Um, and yet I have to use them carefully if I want to keep the fishing line connected to some of my audience. Um, a faggy would be another one. Um, and and I am grateful to my homosexual friends who approve of my use of faggy about the fascists. Um, uh, they have no problem with it. They understand what I'm doing. They don't do the whole politically correct thing um, at me about those words. They would about other words or about other uses of them, but they understand what I'm doing. I've got this one friend she's a lesbian Catholic priest, and and whenever I do that stuff, she says, "Right on, go for it." So it's useful. Retard means slow. And I was thinking, I mean, I play music and retard means slow down, right? That's what the word means. Um, I have been using libtard lately, partly to keep the fishing line. I'll refer to us as libtards, um, because it's the same thing we do with the N word. That is, you inoculate or you turn it into an inert ingredient um, by using it. And then, but at the same time, I noticed this. Liberals are retarded in the sense that we are slow responding and learning from our new situation. That's not how I mostly use it, but I do like unpacking different meanings of words. So yeah, I would describe myself as a libtard in that even though I think I'm a little bit more avid about trying to catch up and trying to learn from our new situation rather than simply taking refuge in my superiority to the fools out there. No, I'd say I'm really slow on the uptake. I mean, it's taken me a long time to figure out. I mean, not as long as others, I would argue. Don't take my word for it, but I really am paying attention to what we need to learn. We liberals need to learn. So that's one use of it. Anyway, okay, let's see. I'm not keeping up. That's the R word you were referring to. And so I have to go back up for a second here to see what happened with that. Oh, let's see. I hate the R word is what you said. I may not find it here. I'm gonna go back down and keep the conversation going. The conversation. Uh okay. Never sausage worse. Uh, one of the first word plays I ever did, I went on a bicycle tour with my brothers at 16, and, we were in Germany, and, after a long bike ride, I had to, take a bath before we went out to dinner, and I said I went from bad to worst. Um, okay, I find the word ugly. Oh, but I do need to announce that in a room filled with people who think Jesse Waller. Got it. So in a way, what I'm suggesting is that if you're going to say you hate the word as ugly, um, uh, and yet you also find it applies to those people, the next step is to think about why you think it applies to these people. My answer would be that people who like Jesse Walters or think he's Walter Cronkite are not keeping up with reality. They're checking out of it. So this is another interesting thing. It's a retarded move that's feels like an acceleration. This is the problem with all breakthroughs. What are you breaking through? You're breaking through constraints. So in a way, they're speeding up by slowing down. They're speeding up in their minds by playing out these ideas, and at the same time, uh, they're doing it by slowing down on reality, and that's exactly what would happen with language. With language, we can speed up our thoughts. Uh, our mind is on vacation, but our mouth is working overtime. Is one way that's talked about. And I burden myself with these questions. Here's one that relates to the whole family thing. You can't have you can't have many top priorities. You can have one top priority. So here's a question I'm dealing with, which is which is your top priority? Your loved ones or the future of civilization? You could expand it to which is your top priority? Feeling comfortable, feeling helpful to your local people, or saving humanity or helping to save it. You're not going to save it. Um, uh, and so I think that's a really hard question. And less hard for me. My luxury is that I don't have those encumbrances to the extent many do. It's one of the reasons I stopped dating about 11 years ago, is that I found that I was constrained in what I said or what I thought by having a local loved one who had to be my priority. Um, I have my children, but they're mostly on their own. I have my marriage to selectively populated um, solitude. Uh, it would be possible. I don't want to get melodramatic, but if someone wanted to torture me, they could hurt people. The Zippenhof strategy, which is don't hurt the um, the revolution, the counter revolutionary hurt. Don't hurt the anti-Nazi person. Hurt his family. Mafia technique. They could, but it's less the case than having to keep my local company happy. That's how I can afford to be mouthy. It's what I've chosen to do with the dumb luck luxury of my life is to have that freedom of dissociation and association. Um, let's see. Okay, sorry, liminal. I didn't know what the R word was. Uh, uh, yeah, this is another part of it, by the way. Um, Misunderstanding is rife when we're hot-headed in the touchy 2020s. Um, it's useful to get explicit. This is back to my point. So it's this in the original thing that I am building on was called, it was in civic humanism, it's called the trivium. It's rhetoric, logic, and grammar. For me, that's turned into how to spin, unspin, and do both even-handedly. So you can unspin your own argument and spin up someone else's. That's the active acting. Um, but grammar still matters because you can get off to the races and be talking about dumb shit because someone misunderstood you, like happened yesterday with me and the trumpets. And I apologized for it. And I also said it could have it could have been an innocent mistake. You could have been trying to provoke me. I don't know. I also said to him that I operate on the assumption that no one owes me trust, not even a partner. There is a conceit that if you're in partnership, you should trust your partner on everything. I have been browbeaten by that on that note. No one owes me trust. If I want to earn someone's trust, I have to do it by their standards. If I want to, I don't necessarily. Um, so no, I don't trust him completely. And he said, no, he said, no, I'm only trying to be helpful. And he self-reporting, self-flattery. Um, I don't buy it. And I don't have a problem saying to a friend, sorry, I don't believe you. And some people just outraged by that. How could you not believe me? Um, how could you not treat me as an exception to the rule? How dare you? No, if you want my trust, it's mutual. If they want my trust, they have to earn it by my standards. I have my standards. I'm pretty clear on what my standards are. They're always being refined, but that's the process of learning by fighting. What really are my standards? What standards can I relax and accommodate? Which ones do I have to hold up? What are my top priorities? Um, uh, you are bad at canasta if you always bring a flamethrower to a card game, notwithstanding you win every time. Memphis, Memphis Pally, I love what you're saying there. I don't love that I have to love it, but I would say that one of the ways in which I've been a libtard is it took me a long time to realize that fascism pretty invariably beats democracy and self-certainty beats doubt. That ignorance is the shortest path to confidence. Um, the flamethrower is that kind of ignorance. And this is where the dumbass death spiral fits in, which is if you're dumb, you'll throw tantrums or bring flamethrowers. And if you're using a flamethrower at a card game, you're certainly not going to be engaged in doubt. That would not help you at all. You have to act like the hero bot. Yeah, which means that you'll end up being dumber. So dumb breeds ass and ass breeds a dumb. Or dip shit dumb. Dip makes you a shithead, but shit also makes you dippy. Um, then AI lose them. I'm not sure what you mean, but then I lose them. Okay, good. Yes, that's right. That's the fishing line thing. Exactly. Hella good. Yes, exactly. My top priority with my chimpanzee loving in-laws is to keep my mouth shut and have them give my wife their inheritance. Priority number one, I hope I win. Please, irony. I like that. I get it. And here's the irony there. Um, I'll tell you a short story. I had a girlfriend who was a lawyer who went to a top law school, and how she got there was interesting. She wanted to be a professional dancer, a ballet dancer. So she studied that, and to pay her way through ballet school, she became a stripper at a bar in Santa Barbara, in San Diego. This one guy comes in, and he says he 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 says he invites her to come and model for him because she was physically cute. And she asked the owner of the strip club whether it was what he thought. He said, "No, this guy's okay. You can go with him." So she modeled it for him for years. And one day he said, "I want come in here. I want to show you something." And he showed her his Nobel Prize. Um, he had been the guy who discovered transferred RNA. So then she decides she's too tall to become a ballet dancer, and she decides to go to law school, and she needs a letter of recommendation. So and so has worked for me for several years, and I find her to be astute, whatever. Worked for you? Yeah, as a nude model. For statues, one of the disappointments was when she left, she took with her one of a statue about this tall that was her, made by a Nobel Prize winner. In San Diego, there's a model of hers made by this guy in some lobby of some large office building there. But anyway, that's how she got into law school. This is the thing. We tend to think that that the shortest path, the easy path, is the route to the ideal outcome. So the way to make the world kinder is to just everybody be kind on the count of three. I mean, kind of obvious, right? Um, no, life is more ironic than that. Sometimes it's a very circuitous route. If you want to get into a top law school, become a stripper in San Diego, right? If you want to make social change or have the freedom to think and become wiser, uh, be tactful with someone so that you can win the money so you can do the thing. And yet at the same time, as we know, there are lots of people um, who claim that's what they're doing. You know, they're working with Trump because they want to tone him down or civilize him. They're the adults in the room. It's dangerous. That's the irony of it. Okay. I hope, Michael, that your relatives aren't reading this. I hope they don't watch this. Um, and you might want to change your name to something cryptic, and change your picture on here in case there's any chance of that. Uh, why does why does a dyslexic agnostic what does a dyslexic agnostic insomniac do? Lays in bed on all night when wondering where there really is a dog. I like that. Cute, cute. Um, I haven't noticed this before. I've noticed that though Geminis don't believe in astrology, I definitely don't. Um, I really talk like a Gemini is supposed to. On the one hand, on the other, I think in stereo. I'm working constantly with opposite pairs, neither totalitarianism nor uh, total anarchy, that kind of thing. Uh, Neither absolutely socialist nor absolutely libertarian, something like that. Well, I was diagnosed as dyslexic young. But I don't know whether I am because I was in Orthodox Hebrew school and I was learning English and Hebrew and they work in opposite directions. So I don't know. But who knows? Maybe that contributes to why I am what I am. I know my dad was deeply Dyronic. That certainly contributes to how I ended up how I am. He talked about Escherisms. He would coin Escherisms. He would say things like, no matter, let's see, I haven't lived my life in vain for nothing. Love that stuff. Because what you get is a contradox that yields a paradox. And I do think it is worthwhile distinguishing those two. They're kind of blurred as we think about it right now. When you have two things that are pointed against each other, we'll call it a paradox. Like the liar's paradox is I am lying. It is true that I'm lying, which is true if it's false and false. Well, it's actually a contradux from which a paradox emerge. You're saying opposite things, and from them emerge a higher level thing, a higher level constraint. And that's true from my perspective all the way down to the origins of life. If you're following the irony as the truest medicine, that's what I'm arguing. You'll get these conflicts, and often they just generate heat and dissipate. But sometimes the contradictions yield a new insight. And in the physical realm, it's all physical for me, but in the strictly chemical prior to life situation, that's exactly what I think we are. I am a contradox that has yielded a paradox. I am the origins of trying beings is two processes that are pitted against each other such that they yield a higher level process, the maintenance of them. It's a chain reaction that yields a seed, that shields that the yields. It's a chain reaction that, as a side product, produces a shell making process, a shell forming process, and the two keep each other in check. So we have a major aversion to paradoxes. It was originally called xenophobia. Um, which has now just come to mean strangers, fear of strangers, but it's fear of strange ideas, um, and so yeah, so I think they are essential. They explain emergence, paradoxes. And one way that this was originally noted was that the liar's paradox as a logical problem is unsolvable, but as a physical problem, it's reciprocation. It's how you get a work cycle going. So an alarm bell or a motor or a generator is actually a paradox. It's a physical, durable paradox. I'm different from that. I have to regenerate myself. An engine doesn't regenerate itself. Anyway, going there. Sharing humanity is the best medicine in a world that tends toward being dehumanizing. Good, but I want to flag this about humanity. Humanism, humanity, humane, they tend to mean generosity, accommodation, kindness, niceness, lovingness. That's the romantic version of what they mean. Uh, I love the paradox in Shakespeare. What a piece of work is man. He meant it both ways. He was good at these at exploiting contronyms, words that mean opposite things. So he meant what a great, majestic thing is humanity, is man. What a fucking piece of work we are. He did this also in a wonderful sonnet uh, that I know by heart, but I don't know if I have to share the whole thing. But he says at the end of it, "Thus I lie with her and me with me, and in our faults by lies we flattered be." He means lie in both ways. So that's how you express irony. That's a great way to do it. It's an Escherism in effect. It sets up a contradiction, a contradox, where you mean these opposite things. Um, all right, let's see. I've been wondering about this idea frequently that it seems that people are doing two things, taking things for granted and being ungrateful, not thankful. What do you think? Thank you for that. Um, uh, I have a song that deals with this that's up on YouTube. It's called Downhill from Here. Um, so if you look that up, you'll find it. And I used to always post it on Thanksgiving, and I'd call it Thanks Grieving. Um, it was I'm grateful for my ingratitude. I have to be grateful for it. There's too much stuff to focus on. And so what I do is I satisfice. This is a term that comes out of decision theory, which is I come up with a sufficiently, I don't optimize, I come up with a sufficiently satisfying solution to a problem and move on to the next squeaky wheel. Um, so I have to be grateful for my ingratitude. There's another aspect to this that's probably very closely related. Yeah, so, Joshua Smith, I remember he talked about the tolerance paradox. Let me just flag that here. It's not just the tolerance paradox, be intolerant of intolerance. It's true of every moral principle I have ever seen. Every moral principle is actually a liar's paradox. You shouldn't be judgmental, be intolerant of intolerance, commit yourself to flexibility, do not be negative. I have never, the golden rule, as I described it at the beginning of this, they're all paradoxes. What do you do with that paradox? Some people say, well, they just dig in their heels. No, really, be intolerant of intolerance. Some people go the other way, which is say, yeah, that just means that morality is bullshit. My answer is if you've got a moral paradox, if you've got a moral principle that is uh, a liar's paradox, is self-contradictory, it's contradox to itself, you are not dealing with a moral principle. You are dealing with a lifelong moral dilemma, a tough judgment call you'll be dealing with for the rest of your life. So my resolution to the tolerance paradox, and I'm going to come back to this thing Michael was talking about, is yeah, lifelong. I'm deciding what to tolerate and what not to tolerate. Once again, carrots, sticks, leaving, accommodation, assertion, space taking. Those are. I'm not. What I think I'm going to get over that. You know, all of these moral principles, they strike me as like these impotent antibodies trying to trying to close a wound that will not close. They're impotent. They never work. They make people feel like they've solved reality, but then they don't work. Okay, so the other thing about taking things for granted, I want to catch this and I'll catch the rest of this, and then we're off in a couple of minutes, which is good because I'm an old man. I have to go to the bathroom. It's so sad. Um, uh, I have often thought that if I ever got back into dating, I would try to impress women at bars by saying, you know, talking about my junk, I could say, take a guess how many times I pee a day. I figure that'll really impress them. Anyway, here's the other thing about taking things for granted. Um, we're incredibly needy as a species, humans, because of language and technology on top of it. But let's just focus on the language. We are trudging through a sandstorm of confidence eroding possibilities, all the real and imagined past, present, future threats and missed opportunities that keep us up at night. We're really needy and we really need to take whatever we're getting for our neediness for granted. We have to do that because we need to not feel needy. So to me, affirmationomics or egonomics is a black market. Where you see this most is you feel most independent when you are supported, when you're reliably supported, and most dependent when you've got nothing to depend upon. So that's where I see it. So I rely on all sorts of things that I take for granted because they're so reliable. This is a major problem at the civilization and economic level. What we're doing, we're living in an era when so many systems are reliable for now. We've gotten so addicted to them because they're reliable. We take them so much for granted. Amazon, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all this stuff. And at the same time, we are playing right up against the edge of their sustainability. And, you know, I actually lost some sleep the other night, imagining, dreaming that the internet was down, sabotage. I mean, we are so addicted. And the addiction is central. We talk about this sometime, but the addiction is central in that when there's a reliable external source of something, my ability to do it for myself atrophies. And then if this disappears, then I'm out on a limb. So if the grocery stores failed, all failed, I'd be out on a limb because I forgot how to farm. If Amazon fell apart, well, part of their plan was to kill all the local stores. We're totally addicted. It is actually too big to fail in that respect, and this is how they've gotten all that power. Let me see. Let me see. Let's see. This is the point of the stream where I realize my question will have to wait until. Oh wait, Limna, what was your question? Before you go, I'm sorry if I missed your question. Um, yeah, I'd love to hear your question. Uh, maybe he's already gone. Um, yeah, if you get a chance, say it because I don't want to miss it. This is a problem with me. I get into these tunnel vision monologue reveries, which are allowed on here. I mean, after all, I'm talking nonstop for an hour and a half. Oh, no, it was about consciousness. Oh, oh, good. Well, the consciousness thing, Liminal, if you email me, I think this week I'm going to be able to send you the article that Terry just wrote for a contest on a radically grounded theory of consciousness. Um, I gave it the name. It's called the neurometabolic strange loop theory. Um, it's it's really brilliant from my perspective, and if you send me your email, I might be able to share it with you. Um, okay, yes, all right. Um, Good, Liminal. I'm sorry I missed your question, and we'll catch it next week. We could even start with it, because yeah, it's really a different approach because it's yeah, yes, okay, um, okay, all right. Let's see. Any last things? I'll just say this much about it. Consciousness, from our perspective, um, first of all, it's an abstraction. It's one of these intuitive abductions that there's something called consciousness, a thing from another realm. That's why we get into so much dualism about it. And one of the ways the dualism works out is that we say, well, there's got to be something extra. And then we say, well, it's information, or we say it's spirit, or it's God. And then we say, it's always already everywhere. Well, if it's always already everywhere, that means you haven't actually explained why some things are conscious and other things aren't. You might say everything's conscious, or you might say nothing is. And though we keep on cycling that for a millennia, we've been cycling that shit. I'm actually writing this up as a dialogue between people that just goes in that circle. The alternative is to actually explain how consciousness emerges within nothing but physical systems. And the way it happens is through a strange loop, which is kind of what we talk about, these sustainable paradoxes. And in this case, it's between metabolism and neurology. Neurons uh, neurons are constantly firing. They're something that evolved in mobile organisms, and they're constantly firing, and they are really needy of resources, and they have to get the right amount of blood flow and not too much or not too little. In the meantime, our attention shifts neuronally from one thing to another, which means that there's the allocation of that blood flow, um, and there's a 3 orders of magnitude difference in the speed at which it happens. So imagine that neurons are like these fixed things stuck in a neighborhood, and the neighborhood suddenly gets all active. And there's questions about you got too much blood flow or too little in this area or that, and that's where you would get qualia. Qualia is what we're talking about with consciousness. Some people think of it as like self-awareness. So all of that's at the level of symbols. Um, so I'll be saying more about that, and thank you for raising it because yeah, it's a very different approach from what we tended to do for the last thousands of years about damage. And I keep missing at the start of these lives. Sir Crumbly Blundertruss. What a prestigious, what a heavy handle you got there, my brother. These are also available as recordings if you ever want more of me, um, or the beginnings of these. Um, a friend said to me the other day, this is a 75-year-old lawyer, a 75-year-old lawyer I'm playing a gig with tonight. He said, there's so much of you on YouTube. He's a Jewish guy, and I told him the Jewish joke. Um, uh, Louis walks in on Moshe, his business partner, having sex with Louis's wife. And Louis says, Moshe, I have to, but you? You could tell this either gendered. There's a woman, a woman could come in on husband. But my point is, I have to listen to me, but uh, but you don't. It's strictly optional. Um, let's see. You say everything is circular. I'm not saying everything is, Fun Monster. I'm saying if you want to explain the existence of anything durable, it's anything non-durable. A rock is not circular, but all of these fragile systems, whether it be you as a living being or the United States of America, they are all circular in the sense that they are checks in balance with each other. They are keeping each other in check. They're keeping each other from spinning out. That I would also say in my closing moment is my big problem with Trumpism. It's an unchecked movement. It's internally got lots of checks and balances, and that's why it's overrunning us. Okay, I will see you guys next week. Thank you for being here. Really grateful for your company and attention. Take care, you guys.